Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Today we go to 1976 and James Goldstein's Swashbuckler, starring Robert Shaw, James Earl Jones, Genevieve Bujold, Peter Boyle, Sid Haig, Geoffrey Holder, Beau Bridges, and this is really the first Pirates of the Caribbean film. There's actually a lot taken from this film that's in the Pirates of the Caribbean film. James Goldstein made films like Rollercoaster and When Time Ran Out, the volcano film. He also did a remake in 1990 of Truffaut's Bride in Black, or a reimagining from the book, The Bride Wore Black. So obviously 1976, Robert Shaw's riding high after Jaws. As far as this influencing the Pirates of the Caribbean films, I think this was definitely influenced by Richard Lester's Musketeer films. It kind of has that feel of a Lester film as far as an all-star cast. It's perhaps not as precise as a Lester Musketeers film, but it's along that kind of line. So if you like the Musketeer films by Richard Lester, you'll probably like this. This is a Danish import Blu-ray, which I only got for £9 on eBay, from Excalibur Media. It is in English, but it has Danish and Finnish and Swedish and Norwegian subtitles. It's region B, and you also get a little bit of inside art. This film is a lot of fun. It is a bit messy, but there's some kind of rugged charm to it. As I say, it's basically Pirates of the Caribbean. It's one of those films you wish that perhaps Indicator got and then had a wonderful retrospective making of, to see exactly how drunk Robert Shaw was. So we're introduced as James Earl Jones is about to be hung by Beau Bridges, who plays a character called Major Folly. But round the corner comes sailing in the Blarney Cock. Yes, that is the name of Robert Shaw's ship, the Blarney Cock. We do actually get to see the Cock on board quite a few times. It's actually the Golden Hind in reality, one of the most famous ships that Sir Francis Drake drove. So it is actually the Golden Hind that they used for the filming. But it's Robert Shaw's Blarney Cock in the story. So obviously they get James Earl Jones back. This is set in Jamaica in 1817, and there is a nasty governor who's basically robbing the poor and keeping all the spoils for himself. He chucks out Genevieve Bujold's father and puts him in prison. And eventually she gets Robert Shaw and his crew to try and kill Peter Boyle and rescue her father and free all the prisoners. So it's fairly standard stuff, but it is quite bizarre and hilarious. The great thing is there's no backstory about how Robert Shaw and James Earl Jones are buddies. They just are. There's a Scottish pirate who's in full Highland dress. There's a Polish pirate, an Irish pirate, which is probably more accurate than some swashbuckling films kind of portray. And there's obviously Caribbean pirates as well. Sid Haig turns up as the Bald Pirate, not surprisingly. And Geoffrey Holder, who was the voodoo witch doctor in Live and Let Die, and he turns up as a multi-knifed character who, to be fair, just isn't on the screen enough. That's one of the downsides. Some of the characters who are really fun and interesting just aren't on the screen for long enough. But I do want to shout out Henry Kingi, who again, you might not recognise the name, because certainly I couldn't tell you what his name was until I looked it up. But he's the guy, the long time Hollywood stuntman who was in lots of 80s action films. He was born in 1943. He's one of Peter Boyle's fencing partners who dies, because he does tend to die in lots of the films that he's in. He was in Predator. He's the gorilla who jumps into the Jeep just before it blows up after Arnold Schwarzenegger's pushed it down the hill. And he's also in Predator 2. He's the guy on top of the roof firing off automatic weapons at the Predator before the Predator offs him. So I was really happy to say, oh, that's the guy from Predator and Predator 2, and I actually looked up his name. So shout out to Henry Kingi, doing what he does best, turning up in a film for a couple of minutes and then dying. So Robert Shaw plays Captain Ned Lynch, or Ned Red Lynch, because he does have a scarlet outfit of shirt and trousers, which he wears quite often, beginning of the film and the finale. He does have other clothes, obviously, because he's a pirate. Genevieve Bujold gives as good as she gets. You can't actually believe her wielding a sword about. She's obviously had some training. James Earl Jones is just super cool, as you'd expect, because he's James Earl Jones with his Jamaican accent. Beau Bridges is basically the butt of all the jokes and screws everything up. Peter Boyle is like a chubby Dracula, and he's perceived to be, like a kind of Marquis de Sade kind of character. He has a male lute player that occasionally joins him in for a bath. So obviously there's something strange and unnatural about him, because he has baths with lute players who happen to be male. The lute player is an interesting character. He has like extended sharp finger attachments that he uses to torture people with. We'll call it torture. So there's a lot of like strange little things going on in the film. Again, Robert Shaw does laugh a lot and seems as though he's a little puggled, but he's still Robert Shaw. I mean, who would you rather have, Robert Shaw or Johnny Depp? Who would you rather have, Keira Knightley or Genevieve Bujold? I think we know what the answer is. Angelica Houston is in the film. She was 25 at the time. She's Peter Boyle's wife, but I think that might be a lavender wedding type arrangement. I could be wrong, but I don't think Angelica Houston actually has a line of dialogue. She's just sitting in amongst the chaos in Peter Boyle's house, among all the women and all the cats and all the lute players. Again, this begs for a retrospective making of documentary, because it is very odd. The action scenes are a lot of fun. There's lots of hoary laughing and lots of wenches and lots of sword play, lots of explosions, some tension. It's obviously played as a light Saturday afternoon action extravaganza, but again there's some oddness to it that perhaps children might have strange questions for their parents about. So I would maybe leave it to maybe 7 o'clock at night before you watch it, rather than the afternoon. But it looks really good on Blu-ray. And again, it's Robert Shaw, Genevieve Bujold and James Earl Jones playing pirates, Peter Boyle playing, as I said, chubby Dracula perverse governor, and it's so much fun. I mean, sadly, the Blu-ray has no extras whatsoever, but maybe one day we'll get a special edition from Indicator, because it's just an absolute joy. Again, is it perfect? Not really. It's a bit messy. It could have been tighter, but it's just so much fun. So thanks so much for watching this random review of Swashbuckler. Please let me know in the comments if you've seen it and what you thought of it. Again, it just reminds you, obviously, sadly, that Robert Shaw was gone way too early at 51, and he really should have made a lot more films, because he is a lot of fun. There's even a scene where Robert Shaw and James Earl Jones trade dirty limericks with each other, which is absolutely wonderful, of course. So that's Swashbuckler, and this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.